I think the models that we have for it now have really evolved. And, all of us have been through the earlier stages of, blogging and individual bloggers and kind of individual thought leaders. And then sometimes the outgrowth of that, which was where people were creating pretty huge teams. It's like, oh, if you're serious, if you want to scale, you have to hire a whole bunch of people in order to get to a certain level. And I think with the advent of technology, certainly in recent years with AI, there are ways that you can be very efficient in how it is that you're delivering things. On one hand, of needing to back it into productized services, very streamlined, clear operations that are automated in the very best way by things that technology can do, and then where the human comes in and does the best thing that a human does.
Welcome to the Osumare Learning Podcast, where genius is celebrated, joy is the catalyst, and we learn most deeply by teaching what lights us up. I'm Parchelle Osumaré, executive learning producer, curriculum designer, and former high school math teacher, and lover of all things wisdom.
And I'm Portia Michelle Osumaré, client experience designer, business coach, joy strategist, and a lifelong learner of the sacred and the strategic. Together, we're excavating wisdom from our brightest and most brilliant friends and partners, gaining insight that transform how we learn and how we teach in today's world.
So join us as we offer insights, community wisdom, and unique perspectives on experiential learning. So welcome to the show. Welcome back. Osumare Learning Podcast. We are the Osumares.
Hello, my name is Portia Michelle Osumaré.
Parchelle Osumaré.
Thank you again for coming on into the Osumare Learning Podcast. We are stoked to see you. We have another really great episode ahead, but as always, we usually take a second to kind of check in with our week. Parchelle, it's Friday. How'd your week turn out?
To be honest with you, it had a little bit of ups and downs. I think I started off very, very good at the top of the week. I've been shifting my schedule a little bit more to just allow for more visionary time, right? Just time that is just open. So I think that actually set me up really, really well. Recently, I've just been in deep reflection mode, considering conversations around mentorship, even thinking back to some of just my own experiences in the past with mentors and finding myself in a position of being a mentor. It's like a very interesting reflection moment for me. All that said, a very, very effective week. And literally, I put a list at the beginning of the week. I wanted to say, all right, these are all the people that I want to connect with and make some genuine connection with. Like 80-90% of them are on my calendar. And so I love working and moving strategically and being intentional about connections I'm making and all that. So it's been a very, very full week for sure for me. My Spark session is coming up too, which is part of this process. So when I talk about how I'm able to kind of spark conversations with people and continue to build those connections, like my Spark method is something I'm excited to share officially. So getting prepped for that workshop this next Friday is also heavy on my mind, among other things. But that's been my week. I'm just learning. I'm feeling really open.
It's good. I'm very excited about this Spark workshop. One, because I think that the methodology is good and it works, and I'm tired of people asking me about it. So thank goodness that it exists. One more person is like, can you get me on Parchelle's calendar to do that LinkedIn thing? I'm like, y'all, please have a workshop. So I'm so glad that it exists and people can come and we can get this learning. Highly, highly anticipated. And congratulations on a week of, I watched you at the beginning of the week be like, I'm getting 6 degrees of separation closer to all of these people, and you knocked it out. We love an effective CEO week. I mean, why be productive when you can be effective?
There you go.
I'll take it. Equally feeling the vibes of a effective week, but also feeling like it's a Friday of an effective week, and I'm like, hold it on for dear life. One eye open. Yeah. One of those CEO weeks where I have been tried, but I also have seen some of the edges this week. One of the big wins for me this week was I presented to an international community, and I learned what a fortnight was. Look at me. It was like, we're scheduling on a fortnight. And I was like, babe, I know that's not a video game, but I don't want to sound like a stupid American. Please walk me through this. But I did also kind of see how my work lands in international audiences, and particularly the nuances of experience design and client journey and how it's thought of in other parts of the world was really interesting to me. So interesting, and how some things are really universal, but some things really are cultural. And so thinking through how I start to share those things in ways that land across backgrounds and cultures and beliefs was really, really awesome, and took all my little spoons. And so I'm spoonless. I'm looking forward to a happy afternoon conversation and then a nap. Not gonna lie. That's where I'm at.
I heard that. And congrats to you. I mean, I remember you coming off of that call. I think I probably saw you that evening, but I could just tell you were just in your bag, like, and I love seeing you in that. So congrats.
Thank you, my love. I truly appreciate it. I will say also about that I learned that, like, my normal non-code switching black self works in all the rooms. And, I think that you can convince yourself that that's not the case, but it's the case. When people don't get the analogies, you just explain them, and then people learn, and it's not weird. And that's, I think, the reality of a multicultural world that we're walking into, is just be your whole self, and then we all get used to each other. So thanks for seeing me in that.
Yes, we will continue to be our authentic selves. I think that's the key to it.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like as we are navigating in, I'm so excited for you all to hear this episode. I'm trying to do my best to not give like pre-spoilers and then a spoiler and then a pre-spoiler, because we're really, really excited to be talking to Pamela Slim. And it's so funny that you would be talking through and considering, mentorship, because I really do feel like Pamela is somebody that both of us really look up to in the work. So it's a little bit like, having one of our favorite folks in-house with us in this space, and I'm so excited for you guys to get the wisdom that is about to fall out of this lady's mouth, because every time I am with her, I learn more, from the books to the websites. Even I've learned so much secondhand information about Pam through Parchelle. Well, Pam said. So I'm very excited to give you guys some of the what Pam said conversation. We're stoked coming into this call.
Yeah, I'm definitely am too. And if we gave this conversation a theme, we discussed a little bit before, talking about the expert's business, right, in today's age. So we're just writing that out and seeing where that conversation takes us. So let's get started. Let's introduce Pamela and get some fun, get to know you questions.
Okay, real quick for the video, because I know we're going to get some editing in. Is anybody else hearing a fan background noise? It's just me and my crazy house. No,
I wasn't even like, thank you for pointing that
Woo!
out.
I was like, I'm losing it. I know I am. I'm like, my mic's the only quiet one. Now I'm hearing a ghost fan.
We're good.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Pamela.
All right. Where do you want to pop back in, Parchelle?
Let's just pop back into some getting to know you questions for Pam.
Fantastic. All right. Do we like Pam or do we want Pamela? What feels good to you?
Pam is good.
Okay, Pam it is. Now I'm all in every Osumare Learning Podcast. I feel like we love to get to know our people's expertise, even though we're having a good conversation about expertise today. But we also want to kind of get to know them for real a little bit. So I have a couple of questions, 5 questions to ask. They will slowly but surely rise from maybe easier to a little bit more revealing to answer.
Okay.
So you don't have to answer anything that you don't want to answer, but we would love to get to know you for real and get to know some of the woman behind the CEO. Starting off light, rapid fire questions. Going first, desert sunsets or beach sunsets?
Oh my God. I'm going to go with beach. I live in the desert. I love the desert sunsets, but I grew up in the Bay Area and there's nothing like a homegrown sunset at all. So yeah, beach.
Homegrown sunset. I feel that. Interestingly, I'm the opposite for the exact reason, though. That's like, I love a beach sunset, but I grew up in the desert. And so there's something that feels like home in a desert sunset. I love that. Okay, next question. What's the most adult purchase that you've made recently? And why are you proud of yourself for having made it?
Okay, so God, adult. This is interesting because recently I did buy a car. It feels like a childhood wink that I'd had for a long time. And this is layered. I could talk for 35 minutes, which I won't. But I grew up in Marin County, California, which is a very fancy, wealthy neighborhood. We were not fancy and wealthy. My mom was a single mom. My parents split when I was little. And so I always loved a BMW. Like, you get in your head, you're just like, I would love to have a BMW. It's not necessarily rational, but I just want that. So there's sort of a childhood link to it. But I think the adult part is I finally made it happen. I got a used one. I was so excited that I was like searching, for used ones. So I found a 2023 with only 6,000 miles on it. Beautiful turquoise blue X1 little BMW. So I'm driving it, which fulfills childhood dreams, but I did it in a financially responsible way, which feels very adult.
Loving this. And also celebrating your adult car. Because it's like, as a childhood person, right, when you're in your youth, you're like, I'm going to know that I made it to adulthood when I have that thing. Super celebrating that this was that thing. That's delicious. Okay. Well, and now we're talking about driving. Same lane. You are at a drive-through restaurant that you know you're not supposed to be at. What drive-through is it? And what food are you ordering?
Gosh, not supposed to. Another layered question, because I am being very conscious and deliberate about language. I love all food, all food. I'm totally embracing it. I've been recently embracing food that like makes my cells feel really good at my 59-year-old age. So like first thing I thought of was Salad and Go. I don't know if y'all have it where you live, but
Yes,
it's an amazing drive-through, reasonable price. I always feel good after. I equally love, but I don't feel the same after, In-N-Out. So my kids a lot like to go to In-N-Out. And so I was just like, ooh, I can taste the double. But these days I'm just like, the cells are speaking louder than the brain and the desire. So, but again, love desire, love all food. It's not that. It's just like, I'm thinking about the long term of how I'm going to feel after.
Thank you for taking care of yourself. And thank you for being real, because that's the truth. It's like, I'm going to go because I'm going to go. And I may be more responsible about it, or I may have to do a lot less of it, because we're at a place where the way that we feel, oftentimes for a lot of us, matters a lot. It affects everything. So thank you for being honest about that. For me, it's totally Jollibee chicken. Like, I'm like vegan, but I'll eat Jollibee chicken. Like, how am I not vegan just for chicken? But we'll be with it. Okay, a little bit closer to the lane. You can share or not share. You're on a Zoom. Are you wearing pants or no pants on a Zoom? Pants or no pants on the Zoom?
Always pants. It's just like what pants are the thing. So I can be a little bit of like professional on top, party on the bottom. Today I have functional. So I don't know if we have video, but I have like my workout pants on the bottom. So, but always pants. One time when my kids were super little, I was actually doing an interview for Good Morning America, and like my child, I forget which one, had like a huge tantrum, was screaming on my leg, and I was like running from the bathroom and I had my underwear on. So party on top, Good Morning America, underwear on the bottom. Thank God I didn't have to stand up for any reason. But that's the only time that it happened. It wasn't on purpose.
Oh, this is good. That's a good functional answer. I always tell a lot by the people who answer this question of like how they have their life together. I'm still not there. I'm totally Winnie the Pooh in it. Like, don't ask me to stand up. Don't let this camera go down too long. It's only from my belly button up. Okay, last question. And I would love to hear from everybody on the call on this question, but we'll start with you, Pam. What is the most irritating part of a conference? And again, maybe even watching the words. What is the part of a conference you most avoid?
Yes and yes. It depends on the conference. Somebody, probably well-intentioned at a certain point, was teaching people when they wanted to engage an audience as a speaker, that you would say something and then you would go to the audience, yes or yes. When that happens, I physically cannot stay in the room. Sometimes I'm like, this is not polite. You shouldn't get up. People are watching. I have an absolute, like, full-on allergic attack to it. It doesn't feel consensual. It feels like it's a cheap, lazy way to get engagement. And it feels very hypey, like over the top, trying to override people's nervous systems. So I hear yes and yes. I'm sorry, you may be a very nice person. I'm out.
That's so honest. Again, and deep resonance. Deep resonance. How about you, Parchelle? Most irritating and or avoidable part of a conference?
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's a couple things. One is, to your point of a speaker who's just, like you said, not really engaging the audience in a real, good way. And sometimes for me that shows up in the form of like disengaging teaching. Like you've lost me, you kind of fire hosed us a little bit. Like it's just a teaching style, and how the information is conveyed sometimes can be irritating to me, I think, just because how I think and process. And then there's the whole technical aspect too. So I do really believe in having a strong representation visually, and that the tech is working. And so oftentimes, and I think because I worked behind the scenes in those cases, there's just so much that happens across the board whenever anything technical, kind of goes awry. So those are the pieces for me that can be kind of irritating.
Yeah. Next slide is where dreams go to die. The next slide. The next slide. Like, I'm like, oh, babe. Like, and I've been there, and it's the worst.
Yeah.
It's bad for, like, all three parties. Because next slide person feels like they're not making it, you know. I could go on. Again, I could go on for 35 minutes about that. I feel like for me, mine is similar in that vein of, like, it bothers my soul when people do, like, the forced random engagement, where it's like, everybody in the room, get up and run. And I'm like, we've been in a conference seat for 4 hours. Like, we're going to move our bodies. And it's always like something like super intense or like yoga that people are trying to do in conference clothes. I'm like, guys, like I know what we're doing, but the nuance, grace. Nothing about this is a stretchy outfit. Like nuance and grace. Thought processes.
Everybody run. Yes or yes. Next slide. It's like, my God, awful.
Like inside tears, like the little frog with like the quiet tear. Again, loving it. Thank you all for allowing us to have mildly unhinged Friday questions. Now I feel like you all get a little bit of the real of Miss Pam that we love to be so much. Parchelle, give us the full intro so we can respectfully bring you in properly before we get into these questions.
Absolutely. So this guest that we have today is such a special connection. So I think it was back in 2014. This was probably during one of the toughest periods of my business journey in Philadelphia. I met Pam at an event in Philly, and I was actually struggling to find my niche in video production and sort of what I was doing in my field and feeling a little bit lost. And she really did something that I will never, ever forget. Pam had a way of just like really seeing me and validating the work that I was doing, even in searching for what is my niche, what am I called to? And so that moment, like for me, meant a lot to me as a business owner, you know, especially in that moment trying to figure things out. So since then, I've had the pleasure of having her on a couple of podcasts now. I think this is the third time I feel like we're here. So this is round 3. And she's definitely become somebody I deeply admire and for sure look up to in the industry. So I'm excited to introduce Pamela Slim. She's an award-winning author, speaker, and agency owner who has dedicated 3 decades to helping business owners scale their businesses and intellectual property. I'm reading her bio now, guys. Pamela Slim Agency is revolutionizing how service businesses approach productization and developing powerful certification and licensing programs. Her wisdom has reached countless entrepreneurs through her best-selling books, Escape the Cubicle Nation, Body of Work, and her latest, The Widest Net, which was named the best sales and marketing book in 2021 by Porchlight Books. So excited that you all are here. Let's get ready to learn from Pam, but I know also I want Portia to give her a little spin as well to introduce Pam, and then we'll get into this interview.
Man, it's like, welcome, Pam. Beep, 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 beep.
Welcome.
Podcast man. It's so good to have you. And again, you all know, I don't introduce y'all to people that I don't like, and I surely do not elevate someone's expertise that I don't believe in. What I love so much about Pam is like getting on the call, I was like, we speak the same language. You walk your talk in ways that I really respect, and the brilliance is palpable. I love so much about Pam, exactly what Parchelle said, that kind of secret ability to be able to just be a real human being and have a real human conversation about incredibly elevated business topics, incredibly elevated opportunity for expansion and brilliance coming out of this woman's mouth in the way that she sees how expertise is crafted, but just business in general. I'm not surprised that Parchelle's had 3 conversations. I feel like this conversation, we could have 4 of them. But Pam, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Osumare Learning Podcast. We love you big, and I hope you can tell.
I feel the very same way. And I was thinking about it last night when I was taking a walk, that I feel the same. The amount of intellectual like rigor, interest, creativity, the kinds of products. I know that Parchelle came and did a presentation kind of conversation with my overall team, and everybody was just gobsmacked, right? I got off the conversation with you, Portia, and I was just like, oh my God, like the depth of experience that you have in your craft around experience and offer paths and everything. I get so excited in making a stronger relationship with both of you. So it goes the same way. And it's just so fun to meet people who are so massively passionate about craft. I just love that. And I could talk about it all day. I love marketing school, but sometimes when we're in the business of talking about expert-based businesses, the excitement for people is, well, you can package something as this and make this. And I'm like, but what about what is being packaged? So hopefully we can get into that conversation today.
Exactly. The body of work. I love it. Okay. Well, before we get too deep deep in, let's get a bit of background on you, Pam. How did experts, because the work that you do, again, is you've been doing so much wonderful work for so long in a variety of places, and you could do things for probably anybody. What made experts the group of entrepreneurs that you really wanted to dedicate this portion of your life to?
I think it's always a thread that is the most interesting to me in the times that I was doing work in Silicon Valley in the early days, even before that, even my last real job it was a financial services firm, Barclays Global Investors in San Francisco. For fun, I would wander around the halls and I would like stop at random, like smart ass people and just be like, talk to me about the history of index funds, and I would get so excited by people who had a very specific point of view about a topic that was really interesting and really looking at that craft. In my like hobby interest days, I did, martial arts a long time. I did capoeira for 11 years in San Francisco. And so it was a similar thing of like, really being interested in being around people who had a deep body of knowledge around an area of expertise. Interesting, in the early phase of when I did management consulting and then I got into doing the early stage entrepreneur work with Escape from Cubicle Nation, which was a blog and then a book, that while we might think, early stage people, hence you're talking about foundational business things, my clients always were experts who happen to be experts in corporate. And so when they left, all the baby business stuff that we all do, I still do it after almost 30 years. I'm like, don't I have it figured out yet? Apparently not. But like, you could be doing some foundational business things. But the interesting thing to me is, what is that body of knowledge that somebody has coming out of corporate where, a lot of folks probably, I know we share a lot of core, like literal clients or, the kind of people we like to work with. And they are people that have a clear point of view about what they're doing. Another more values slice of the work is I really like people who are actively building things that are going to make the world a better, more equitable, more enjoyable, easier place. I've called them architects of liberatory change. So it's like not just bringing stuff out there for the sake of bringing it out, but because you're like, we can make this profession better. We can, make this process better. So those are the things that have, I think, always been of interest. And I am the world's slowest learner sometimes. It takes me a long time to like really come around. But I just began to realize, if I can be in conversation with people who are massively passionate and also some of the world's like most interesting experts around topics that actually me and my kids get excited about talking about over dinner, where we're like, I know the world's really messed up. I was going to use a different word, but I'll be safe. The world's very messed up, but like we're working with this client, the climate scientist. We're working with the Black Women Thriving Project, who's making a difference here. We're working with Indigenous change makers here. Like, I get excited knowing that my kids know that I'm working on things that are going to make their future better. So that's, to me, it's like, it's kind of, that thread has always been there, but I probably dabbled in amazing, incredible people who are on their journey, as we all are, toward expertise. And I realize that there's a different set of things that you can do in terms of the work when people are earlier on the journey, right? They're like, what is my thing? And, how do I develop a point of view about it? That's such important work. But I think where I really start to shine is where somebody has already gone through those phases. And by the way, it's not just age related. It's not just that you get to a certain age and then you have that. There's some people who come out, they're 19 and they're like running circles around me, like just because of how they're wired, their background, what they've learned. So it's just, you kind of, if you got it, you got it. And that's, I love to recognize that and then work with those people.
See, and this is why we're close, because I promise you, I have said a version of that at least 12 times. Because it is a different reality, regardless of the craziness that the world is going on right now. I get to lay my head at night knowing the Black doulas are safe in Las Vegas, knowing that like someone's opening up a door in menopause to make sure that we're able to navigate these symptoms. The amount of being surrounded by brilliance makes life feel like it is much more hopeful. And I think that I love so much about what you said. It's like folks that do the work that we do with as much conviction as we do can make a lot of people a lot of money. I'm excited that we're making the people the amount of money who are going to be good stewards of that money to make the world the kind of world that we want.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Love, love, love. And so while we're kind of in that conversation, tell me a little bit about, because there's some things I equally want to kind of get into around body of work. And I'm interested kind of in your industry insider conversation. What is it that you feel like experts are not really getting about the craft of what there is to do when you're crafting your body of work?
I think the definition that I use in the book and that I just use as the working version is your body of work is everything you create, contribute, affect, and impact throughout the course of your life. So it is tangible things, books, methodologies, programs, etc. And it is the way that you are being in the world, that emotional wake that you leave when you come in and out of a room. So we've felt it. We felt the positive wake. You're like, it smells good in here. It feels good in here, right? Probably because, Parchelle and Portia are walking through the room like, somehow I feel better, like who is walking through? And then you have that opposite reaction as well. I just had something. Last night, my daughter graduated high school. Woohoo, go Angie. And there was a gentleman, shall we say, in front of me who immediately went to 100 miles an hour of like screaming and swearing at a gentleman, older gentleman, by the way, in front of him who was like saving a seat or two for his family members who were there to celebrate their child's graduation. And so the man was just going to 100, right? Immediately. Like, what the F you? And I said, simmer down. So I'm not afraid of large men who have short tempers, who happen to look like my brother, by the way. And so I was like, let's simmer down. We're all here to like celebrate, everybody graduating. But it just reminded me in that instant of like, why would we leave an emotional wake like that? Again, 0 to 100. It's like he sat down. None of his family members were coming where the gentleman holding the seats was like taking up space for what he wanted. But it was just instantly sort of sending out that jolt of negativity, right? And just like extraness, and not in a good way. So when you think about that, very specifically in the context of experts, expert businesses, expert bodies of work, we have been behind the stages. We have, worked with folks. We've heard about folks from different team members where they may have a powerful body of work that says all the right things, that's positioned the right way, that has all the right buzzwords, but the emotional wake that they are leaving when they're doing that work is one that's often not in harmony with the work itself. And I think that is extremely important. And I do not say this from a like, one must be perfect. We can't ever mess up. Like we are all human on a learning journey, and I do it every day. We're always trying to get back in alignment with what we believe and what we say and what we do. But it's where there's often not only not an awareness of it, but there's a total disconnect between what is that body of work that you're developing. So think about it. It has a heartbeat. It has a methodology. You're engaging and you're activating people to be using that methodology towards an end with a promise that says, this is something that's going to lead to positive change. But then what is often activating it around the business, around the culture of the business, and around that thought leader expert is often like unresolved stuff. And really terrible behavior sometimes, right? So that is all a really important part of the process. And I think that's something that we often like leave out of the conversation. Again, I just want to underline and highlight, it is not about all of us being perfect people, but it's having an awareness that how I act has a very specific impact on the actual work that I do. And maybe it's a little cosmic, which I know you don't mind me getting cosmic a little bit, but I think it's also how it's energized. You know what I mean? It's like, what is that energy that you're using to be sending that work out into the world? And if it's coming from a root that is a little bit rotten, it impacts it.
Man, you said a thing, and I feel like I watch people, it's like, it's one thing, and I love so much about what you said, it's like, know how, when you walk into a room, know how the energy shifts, regardless, right? You're bringing something into the world, know how it works, and take responsibility for that. But then when and if you get that it's maybe a little funky where you are, the
Yeah.
conversation often is coming from inside the house, right? It's like, I often sit with people, particularly who leave corporate. I know we have a lot of kind of conversations about folks, because corporate is such this beautiful space for somebody to spend lots and lots of years developing one particular skill set. So they oftentimes make some of the most wonderful experts because you have all this untapped knowledge kind of hanging out. But if you've been in spaces that have not been good to you, and you've never sat and dealt with the underlying piece of that pain, we have to feel it while you process stage, and that's hard for us because we love what you have to say, and we want to be with you in the moment, and we want you to do your work so that we don't have to be a pincushion.
That is right. Because it impacts for people who might, work with folks. It impacts people on the team. And I notice that is a dynamic. I don't know if you see it as well, but it's like teams, especially operational teams that do so much to bring a brand to life, to bring an experience to life, can often just have so much extra stress, in doing the work. So it's just where each of us has that awareness, like, oh man, I need to do my work. I really, really need to do my work.
The Osumare Learning Podcast is brought to you by two sponsors that are near and dear to our hearts, because we built them. First up, Business Cousins. Business Cousins is a collective of called to serve leaders who are building businesses that create impact that actually matters. We're about doing real good in the world, giving people the results they paid for, and having a damn good time doing it. If you're into running a business that you actually love, hanging out with smart and soulful folks while you do it, and being supported every step of the way, this may be the room for you. We host gatherings, workshops, and offer ongoing business development support that's as human as it is helpful. If you're interested, apply today at thebusinesscousin.com. Check us out at www.thebusinesscousin.com. And then there's the Author's Leverage. That's our studio for turning your body of work into powerful learning tools. Whether it's digital workbooks, private podcasts, or binge-worthy education content that helps you scale your impact without burning out, we specialize in transforming complex ideas into accessible, engaging learning experiences that your audience will actually use and implement. Our team of expert creators, instructional designers, and production specialists ensure that your wisdom reaches more people in the ways that truly resonate. If you're an expert, author, thought leader, sitting on brilliance, let us help you package it. Learn more at theauthorsleverage.com. That is theauthorsleverage.com.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. I always tell people, you're going to do your soul work or your soul's going to work you. Because at the end of the day, we spend most of our life in business, and you're here on the planet to learn something. You're going to learn it wherever you are. If you do a lot of time doing business, this is where that playground's going to be. And it's worth leaning in, but we can kind of think about it as nice to have rather than a have to have. But when you're an expert and your energetic signature is so much a part of your body of work, it is often the thing. I love that you mentioned it. In this same vein, Shal, I'm also interested to hear you weigh in kind of some of these pieces, in regards to people getting to the stage. You spend so much time with experts crafting their methodologies and putting them into things that show kind of their energetic signature through video and things. How has that shown up for you in some of the work that you all have been doing?
Yeah, it really is something that, and I've never heard it expressed that way you just said it, Sam, Pam, in terms of the connection of the person's energy also being part of their body of work and what they're leaving with. And I'm finding that our work and the projects that we're doing do tend to have, it's like we think about some projects that have, when we look at the success of them and like how they've been impacting, there's a sweet sauce that's in there. And I'm recognizing from what you're saying, they have a continual record of leaving places better than they left them, if you will. And I think that just shines really even more brightly in the work, because it's always interesting. I'm someone who also like follows and also watches those kind of like all the cult films and things where
I'm obsessed. Totally.
But it's
the twin flames and the leggings company. Oh, bring it. Like we should all sit and have marathon watching. I'm fascinated. Totally. Same.
Because to me, I do see that these people are expressing a gift, something that does work in terms of bringing people together, bringing about transformation, but then something just is off balance. And like we're saying, it is something that is an internal work that is still left unresolved, and we're seeing it unfold at this scale. And the consequences of it being just so widespread it's palpable. And I think we all probably have our own experiences in some of those spaces, just the integrity of the work. But like you said, it's not that we're expecting people to be perfect. We're human, but there's just also just a way that you show up when it comes to just treating people at the end of the day, right? And what kind of work we're doing in that process.
Yeah, well, it makes me immediately think of too that there is often like huge gifts and huge influence, power, success that can be related to a side of somebody who really like is able to connect with an audience, who knows about influence and like maybe goes over that line, right? Of like either it's the yes and yes, as I talked about before, where you're like jacking up somebody's nervous system, or you know how to sell. I have so much admiration for people who are able to like influence all kinds of people. They're like there's really some gifts in that, but then you can see of how it is that it really can have this side to it where you realize that people can be carried away by the message, but then as soon as they kind of break out of it, all of a sudden then is where you can see this like crestfallen, like, oh man, this expert whose work I've been following this whole time. It's like you lose faith in the entire body of work. You're like, but their work was so important to me. And it can be, and it is. And there can be too, paradoxically, people who sometimes have really unresolved things or even narcissistic tendencies or like some pretty intense, behaviors, but who still end up creating really powerful, beautiful bodies of work. I've had some of that, with like past mentors and stuff where you're like, but this actually changed my life. This book, like it just moved me, and this is so wise. So it's not a binary, like it has paradoxes in it, but the part to me to really be paying attention to is one for our own selves. How are we using our gifts, and how are we always creating an environment where people who we work with feel like they're not being, pushed into doing something, but then we can be pushing ourselves into expanding our influence. So we let ourselves reach many people with really good sales and marketing, but not to the extent of manipulating people. And I think it's why our space is so deep and hard sometimes. Because I could be like, I'm feeling disgruntled. I feel like I have great stuff, but I may not be selling as well as somebody who I know may be actually causing a lot of harm for somebody else. But I'm like, maybe it's just pushing me to get more clear with the areas that I need to grow in as well.
Oh, and I think you said something so powerful, Pam, that I think kind of takes me to another point in here that I'm wanting to explore, because we're talking a lot about the internal work and what there is to do. And I think that oftentimes experts will be like, I've done all of this good internal work. I know that the area that I bring into the space is great, but then I'm up against someone who clearly makes everyone feel not as great, but because they've done some of the sales, marketing, strategic, methodological, I hope that's a word, kind of work in like crafting some of the pieces around what their expertise is, even regardless of the energy. I think that there's something to speak about there in regards to kind of like, for the expert that's listening to this, that maybe is at the end of a learning journey, meaning they've developed so much expertise because they've been knee deep in doing the work forever, but they're coming into the business of expertise and wanting to prepare themselves for what there is to learn to actually do this well, outside of kind of like taking the moment internally to make sure that you're showing up as who you want to be, you're connected to your gifts, there's an access for the work out in the world. What are some of the more logistical business things that you wish that people knew when coming into this industry?
About the work itself, which is such an important part of it. What is the method that you're bringing forth, or what actually is the essence of the tools and resources that you're bringing through your expertise, which is that's how an expert-led business is made. That's the part that has to be directly tied to the needs of your audience, prospects, and it can be the frustrating thing because we can truly have a point of view that like this is actually what our client needs. Like this makes so much sense to us. This is exactly the kind of solution that they want. And this is what our client needs. We just had a call with one of our favorite clients who's amazing. We have work with one part of the organization. We're working with a new person, and me and my business partner, Darren, we've done this work for so long, and we're like perfectly clear in what it is that we're doing with them. We're like, of course this makes sense. And it makes sense that the way we're doing it. As we had our client come to the call, she was expressing, well, actually, like, what does this part mean? And I don't get this. And why is this part here? And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, we're just so much in in our own world of like, we know what the right thing is and just, trust us to be moving through this process, that I see a freeze happening on the internet. So I may need to go back.
Still there?
Okay. We may need to that was weird. All of a sudden you both froze. I'm not sure if it was on my side, but I don't know where you want me to back up in the story.
Yep. We lost your audio and your visual for just a second. And you got to the point in the story where you were like, me and Darren were like, and then we lost you.
Okay. So do you want me just to pick up from there, assuming I said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
What we realized is that we had been so clear in that our methodology made sense, that we were doing it in the right order. We weren't really listening to and tuned in to what our wonderful client was saying. And she's so good because she was like, this is exactly what I need. Like, this is why I need it. I don't get this part. What do you mean by this particular part of the project? And so it's always this constant reminder that great methodologies have to be in dialectic with the people who are actually using them. And that's the part when it does come to a relationship, maybe with somebody else who's in the space, who's doing the work. Ultimately, first, we have to make a decision about what is that kind of footprint that we want to have. Do we really want to be taking the space of somebody who is a much larger presence in the market, in that they have a lot more clients, they're making more money, they have a bigger team, they have a bigger media presence? Sometimes yes, in which case you do really good, solid business activities to be looking at ways that you can have a healthy competition, with a worthy competitor in the space, of which there are many. Other times you might say, ooh, I am a little bit jealous because that person is so far ahead. But I am really clear, especially in relationship to the way that you understand how you're directly working with your audience. I think like in a certain way, when you're really deeply in relationship, right, and you're doing it together and you're inside their business, it becomes something as a competitive differentiator where, first of all, not everybody in your ideal market even knows about other players that exist. They could never know about them. We run around. I call it's like you're on a little island and you're just seeing people with signs that are like all coaches or all expert-based business providers because you want to check everybody out. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's 25 of us here. Like, how could I ever survive? And in the meantime, there's 7 huge continents filled with people who have no idea y'all are marching around this little island, only aware of each other. So you need to make a decision about how big do you want to go? What is that footprint? Do you actually want to go after a worthy competitive stance, of which there's a lot of good things you can do, looking at SEO search terms and building up your marketing materials and case studies to show how great you are. Many other times what I find is that you actually want to be specific as to how it is that you're digging in and maybe building relationships like all of us have done, right? I'm like, we are in spaces where theoretically and practically we could be in direct competition with each other in terms of the services. But for me, when I look at the genius areas, of which there are many in which you operate, I would rather structure my business so that I can be working with you in partnership rather than going up against you. And it doesn't mean that, as we have, that I have my distinct business and you have yours. And there's times where we probably will have the same client who's talking to both of us. But that doesn't bother me. I'm like, I know they're going to be very well served if they work with you. I know they'll be very well served if they work with me. But it's the expertise. I don't know if you find this with your clients, but people get really stuck on, but like, what is my actual methodology? And, do I have a sticky enough name? Which is important, but they're really missing that, like, actually being deep in the environment of their ideal clients, especially if you have a kind of expertise that might have an application in a vertical area, like you're working in the financial sector or in, nonprofit or social change or whatever. Like when you're really deep there and you're deep in relationship with people in that space, then that becomes a pretty unique competitive advantage.
I would say it. Ooh, and say it again, Pam. I feel like this is one of the things that I feel like I'm always talking to people about when it comes to experience, because I do think that there's the experience that your customer or your client is having, but there's also the experience that you're having, and you got to make sure you enjoy that. Then there's this interesting middle piece of making sure that it's going to match and land. And it's not just that you're an expert in what you do, but that you're an expert in the business of what you do. and how you actually run said business, and that you make sure that all the same energy that you take to make sure that you are applying this methodology and expertise in a way that's going to land in the listening of your people, curated in a way that they really are going to hear it. You kind of also have to do the same about how you're thinking about running the business. I think what's something so interesting that you said, I often find that a lot of my clients find a home in these small niche of their ideal client communities when they do have quote unquote bigger competitors, because they understand what the people need to hear in the language that people need to hear it more. Because oftentimes when people have a big platform, they're a little bit further removed from the day-to-day of the people because they have to be. And because the machine, like we talked about, to run something at a certain level requires a lock-in on that. Whereas if you've got a smaller audience that you really understand and you know how they spend their day and their night, you know what keeps them up at night, you know how other people are talking to them and the way that they may need to hear something, and you can match it with the best way that you show up to present something, there's an ocean of one there. There is no such thing as a competitor in that space. And I can even see it with so much of us, kind of even on this call, we love to work in collaboration because we understand our lane and our application. And we understand that people are going to need a lot of support. It takes a village to make a business.
Yes, it does.
It kind of does, and a lot of what we're being sold is that it's like just you and your computer. And we all know that businesses are made of human beings. Until the AI take us over completely and we lose the sun like the Matrix, AI, like the human beings here, you're still going to need to make network and community of them for the running of the business, the selling of the business, the receiving of the business, the impact on the planet. All of those are relationships and people. And there's something that came out of what you just said that I do want to highlight lastly, is around this idea of the business model. I know you and I, Pam, will geek out about what I feel like experts miss the mark on what I call the small but mighty business model. Like, you don't have to be, we love Brene Brown, but you don't have to be Brene. Like, you don't actually have to be at that level. Like, there are lots of people having really profitable, incredibly impactful business, doing life and work in ways that work really well when they figure out how to do like the least amount of miscellaneous things. So you got to be really strategic about the work, but kind of like taking everything that you've done and not trying to make an empire, but just trying to find the lane that you own and knowing the things to do over and over and over again with high margined offers and, small teams. There's a lane there. Speak a little bit about how you've seen that work for folks or not.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I think I think the models that we have for it now have really evolved. And, all of us have been through the earlier stages of, blogging and individual bloggers and kind of individual thought leaders. And then sometimes the outgrowth of that, which was where people were creating pretty huge teams. It's like, oh, if you're serious, if you want to scale, you have to hire a whole bunch of people in order to get to a certain level. And I think with the advent of technology, certainly in recent years with AI, there are ways that you can be very efficient in how it is that you're delivering things. On one hand, of needing to back it into productized services, very streamlined, clear operations that are automated in the very best way by things that technology can do, and then where the human comes in and does the best thing that a human does. So that's one piece. I'm always searching for it. Sometimes I annoy my team because I know I want everything to be like done always, and then I am always the person who's like, and now we need to improve it even more. And everybody's rolling their eyes. They're like, we just locked this down. Can't we just do that? The other piece, speaking of my amazing, incredible team, is there is a dynamic to being able to have a flexible team. I have, and very openly, what I call a modern business structure, which is everybody who works with me, we work independently. They have other clients. They have other gigs that they're doing. And there is a very deliberate way that I think about the work that we do together for me as the head of my company that's working in collaboration with them, which is to be creating an environment much like I would if everybody were full-time employees, which is really having a spirit of, clear communication, inclusive behaviors, and getting to know, them as individuals and having interesting projects in which they're working on so that they're choosing to want to continue to work flexibly. Because I've heard sometimes people say like, I like the idea of working with, maybe fractional folks or, kind of part-time folks, but it's like, it feels so scattered and it feels like I'm not really getting support. If I want full-time, if I really want real support, I need to be hiring something full-time. And I just sit back sometimes and I think I understand that conceptually, but my own experience is I feel like I could never get better support than each person on the team who just shows up so fully in their excellence. Some of them might be giving, 10% of their time to my company and our work, but it's the way that you're really deliberately creating an environment where people feel good doing the work, where they can have open and honest conversations with you, where they don't just feel like vendors or just, like fractional members that never hear anything from you about what the big picture of what's going on. That I think is a really big part of it. I am always aspiring to that. And we're nerdy. We love automation. We're really interested in AI and the ways that it can be used in an effective way to do better work and also more profitable work. So I know that that's the way that I'm wired. I'm single mom now, although, both my kids will be in college, but it makes me stressed out if I have to think about carrying a big payroll all the time and being responsible for that in this rocky road of an economy. So I feel great and massively energized if I know that my business model is activated when we do get more projects. I just pull more people in, right? Look for a call from me very soon, right? By the way, there's some things happening where I'm like, okay, a lot more work happening these next couple of months. Let me activate pulling more people in. So for me, that really works. For somebody else, I can see if they don't have that same interest in cultivating that type of environment, it could not work. They might want full-time people.
Pam, we need the book. I hope you didn't have anything else in mind, because this is the next book, friend. We need the book. We need the body of work. We need the speaking tour, because there are so many of us who, we are doing the best we can, attempting to do that in that space. But you're correct. This is the expert's business design of the future for the majority of people. You're coming out of corporate, having been in a cubicle for 200 years, having to answer to 500 people that you don't really want to, like, most of us don't want to duplicate that. We think that it's the only way to business, but there is another way. And the way that you've been able to wrap your arm around your team, because they're fractional and because it's smaller, and the way you've been able to curate a culture because there's not 200 of change, what I think, and gives a little bit of agency and sovereignty in ways that most of us who are starting entrepreneurship as experts desire really deeply, or are continuing our entrepreneurship journey as experts desire really deeply. And again, overhead and payroll is more than a notion. Most of us quit there. That tends to be my hardest thing, is like, I know so many brilliant people who felt like they couldn't hack it at business, and so they decided to do something else. And oftentimes it's just because you're putting on a model that doesn't suit you because you think there's no other option. And man, is there other options, right? And again, y'all got to find Pam everywhere Pam is, so that you all can be hearing some of these pieces. And I think that, Pam, thank you so much for being with us and answering some of these questions. I feel like I'm already setting the stage for round 2, so we can start talking about how we create company culture with fractional team members. Round two.
Well, and I was cracking up because, the title of my next book I'm working on is Remember Who You Are, How to Lead World-Changing Work Without Losing Your Soul. So it's sort of related to what you said. Are you like a mind reader? Potentially. But there is that thread in there. So that is validating to me that you see maybe something like that coming out into the world.
Well, I will tell you, I'm the ideal audience, and that's hilarious. I always tell people, who needs telephone when you have telepathy?
Exactly.
Who needs it? Like, here we are. I think the closer you are to somebody, the easier it is to hear their thoughts. And, I think it just says that we're in right relationship to me. Like, these are the kind of people that I want to be working on stuff with. And this is why we're, excited to be able to be working on stuff together. Y'all, again, Pam, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for blessing us with this wisdom. Please come back so you can bless us some more. But in that same spirit, I know the people are going to be leaving here like, what next? So please tell us where we can find you, where folks can get some expertise from your expertise.
Yeah, PamelaSlim.com is my site, and on social, and you are featured there. Both of you are featured there under our favorite partners that we work with. But that's where you can find everything that we do. My main social channel these days is LinkedIn for work stuff with a Pamela Slim agency, but usually just for myself as the person. And then Instagram for the rest of my life. So children, dogs, travels, random things. I used to have Facebook, but I got hacked and I was like, this is scary. I can't talk to a real person. And I deleted my whole account after 20 years, which is sort of sad, but at the same time, I feel very liberated. So you can't find me on Facebook anymore.
It's a little scary over there. And it's, this is the private podcast we need. Is like, what's going on at Meta? It's frightening in some areas. I'm like, guys, but I will have to say, I have to let you know, I saw the new website. I was like, ooh, it's gorgeous. So shout out to the team also, and like the many varied hands that had to be pulled together to make something so beautiful. Super honored to be featured, but also just like, ooh, this may be the cutest website I've ever been on. Look at me on a website. It looks great. Great. Parchelle, anything last words you want to say to, I know, again, Pam, you're so beloved. Like I really do feel like we talk about you almost as much as we talk to you.
Same.
You really are, Pamela. Thank you so much. Always love getting to connect and spend time and learn from each other. So thank you again. I'm excited for part 2, round 2.
Me too. Thanks, you too. I feel the same.
We love it, and we love y'all. Thank you for listening to the Osumare Learning Podcast. You can find more of these podcasts where all the podcasts are podcasting. Come listen in as we continue to find experiential wisdom to share with y'all. See you next time.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and consider what was shared today. Thanks to our guests for sharing. Thank you to Parchelle for holding us in this container. And thank you for listening. We hope that something that was shared today sparks a new idea, inspires a new action, or creates something that you're excited to share with your community.
And thanks to Portia for leading this wonderful conversation and for bringing the vibe. Make sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and hit us up on LinkedIn or Instagram. We want to hear what this sparks for you. So do us a favor, drop a review or leave a comment with what you thought.
All right, friends. We will see you next time on the Osumare Learning Podcast. I'm already looking forward to it.
Me too.